Ponderings of an Octagenarian by Flegg of Glenhaven, 2156. Narrated by Rowena Robinson. When I was very young, I was afraid of growing old. In fact, I was afraid of just about everything. But despite all my fears, I will be turning 80 in just a few weeks. How did my younger self negotiate her way through the uncertainties of life and the complex maze of aging to become an octogenarian? The fear of old people and of growing old began, I think, when Mum used to read illustrated books to me at bedtime. Elderly people were depicted as being bent, grey-haired, and brandished walking sticks. They either had a few straggly teeth or none at all, and talked loudly because they were hard of hearing, and they were portrayed as being crotchety and ill-tempered. On the other hand, I had 4 elderly grandparents whom I loved dearly. Mum, Daddy, and I lived with my housebound maternal grandparents. Papa was almost blind, and Nana had cataracts and also suffered from debilitating migraines. I became accustomed to playing quietly because Nana couldn't cope with noise. Nana and Papa were not in the least bit scary, but I could see that old age was not something to look forward to. If Nana had been born in my era, the cataracts could have been removed safely and quickly, and her migraines managed with modern drugs. She could have had quality of life. No one knew what was wrong with Papa's eyes, but if he were living today, there would be a good chance he would not go blind. As a contrast, my paternal grandparents were well, agile, and able to get out and about. One of my mother's friends reinforced my fear of aging. She wore a hearing aid that looked like a small brick attached to her chest. Cords ran from the brick and connected to bulbous-looking amplifiers that protruded from her ears, making her look like an alien creature in a comic strip. I was both curious and horrified by this hearing apparatus, and hoped desperately that I would never have to wear one. Today, the hearing-impaired no longer wear bricks on their chests and instead have tiny removable speakers in their ears that are barely noticeable. My generation has far less to fear about aging than generations that came before. We are the lucky beneficiaries of everything modern medicine and science has to offer. I could never envisage myself living to be 80, as neither my parents nor maternal grandparents reached that age. Mum died at the age of 58, and bearing in mind my family history, I assumed I would never make old bones. But despite having had numerous extremely serious challenges along the way, I've survived. I have a mantra: I can do this, which, repeated over and over during a crisis, gives me strength. Had my future been revealed to me when I was a teenager, I think I would have curled up in a fetal position and given up. The challenges would have seemed insurmountable. I was anxious, shy, and lacking in confidence. My mother would often say to me, "Oh, ye of little faith." It wasn't directed at me in a religious way, and was always said kindly. It was simply a reminder from Mum to me to have faith in myself and my abilities. Mum had another saying, "You haven't been tried and tested yet." Those words gnawed away at me. Would I pass those life tests, whatever they were? Would I even recognize them? I didn't want to be a failure. Over the years, I realized that confidence doesn't happen overnight and comes with life experience and age. The more times you do something, the more adept you become and the more belief you have in yourself. Failure, on the other hand, need not be a bad thing. If you can learn a valuable lesson from failing, it can make you stronger. Then, with the knowledge you have gained, you can forgive yourself and move on. On the day I turned 18, my paternal grandmother told me a story which gave me an insight into the minds of elderly people. She remarked that she still felt 18 inside. That surprised me. She then related a story about herself as a young woman back in England, recalling the joy she felt in turning somersaults down a hill. Really? I looked hard at Grandma and tried to imagine her turning somersaults. She hadn't weathered well, but had a happy smile on her face and a nostalgic twinkle in her eye. Her youthful spirit shone through. As she told me more stories about her life, the age gap between grandmother and granddaughter lessened. I resolved to be just like her, young at heart and willing to share my stories with family and friends. I also resolved to never again judge people because of their age or the way they looked. At the retirement village where my husband and I have lived for the last 10 years, we are surrounded by people of similar age, give or take a few years. Some of those people are amazing and serve as role models for us both. They have the same youthful outlook that Grandma had. Their minds are sharp. They are interested in world affairs. They exercise to the best of their abilities. They socialize and are passionate about their hobbies. They have a zest for living. Not everyone can live to a ripe old age. But for those who do, despite arthritic joints and bodies that are far from being in perfect working order, it is possible to live a life of quality and fulfillment. Aging gracefully isn't easy. It's difficult. There are constantly new obstacles and limitations to either overcome or adapt to. However, there is an upside. Old age can bring wisdom, inner peace, and an acceptance of the inevitability that life must eventually come to an end. I feel privileged and look forward to becoming an octogenarian. The end.